Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 822A, and today's date is November 19th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Private Western Central Bankers Instruct Obama to Veto the Fed Transparency Bill. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with Stephen Lenman is now uploaded to the X22 Report Spotlight channel. You can go right over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to that video, or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, you'll see it on the right-hand side, or you can go to the news site, which is newssentinel.com, and you can find the video there and watch it there. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we watch this economy, we are seeing that every single economic indicator that's coming out is telling us we are in collapse mode. I mean, there's no other way to look at this. And when we look at more and more information as it comes out, it just gets worse and worse. It's not getting better whatsoever. And it seems like the corporate media, the U.S. government, they're continually trying to cover up what's really happening here. And what we're seeing is consumer sentiment is completely decoupling from the illusionary propaganda that the U.S. government, central bankers, corporate media are putting out there. And we're reaching the point where the comfort level is reaching near 2015 lows. But what's even more interesting about this is that we talk about housing quite a bit. And when I started mentioning that housing was starting to fall apart, housing prices were coming down, they've hit the top, it's getting harder and harder to sell a home, I started to see something very interesting, something that we saw back in 2008 when everything was starting to fall apart. You remember when the Fed told us that everything was contained, housing was fine? Larry Yun from the Association of Realtors was out there saying that housing was going to rebound, that this winter of 2008 was going to be much, much better. This was only a temporary setback. Well, we're starting to see the same exact thing occur right now. And in the corporate media, it said that, this is the headline, U.S. housing starts hit 7-month low. Setbacks seen as temporary. Now, they're already starting the propaganda because they realize that people are starting to wake up and they're realizing that why isn't my house selling? I put it on the market. It's staying on the market longer, and longer. And something is going on here. Now, of course, the corporate media has to convince everyone that everything is fine. So they're putting it out that this is just temporary. And we saw this back in 2008 with Larry Yun, when housing was completely imploding on itself in October of 2008. He was out there saying that the market's going to get better during the winter months. We're going to see a turnaround. We're seeing the same thing happen right now. And I looked around today, and housing is just getting worse and worse, and it is spreading. And this is why this propaganda is coming out right now, because they're trying to head it off. And they're trying to keep the illusion alive. And what we're seeing is more and more economic indicators to let us know that whatever the government is telling us is completely fake, phony, and false. Caterpillar is reporting its latest monthly retail sales. And these numbers have never been worse. Even worse than the Great Recession. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Sales are tumbling to negative 8% year on year. If we look around in the Asian Pacific market, down negative 28%. And it's continually falling. Latin America down negative 36%. And what we're seeing is that we are at a record 35 months of declining annual retail sales. During the Great Recession, it was 19 months of declining retail sales. And these are the big machines that they use around the world for construction, for mining, and everything like that. And the company tracks all of its equipment. It has electronic GPS inside the equipment. They know where each piece is. And the president of Caterpillar is saying that, listen, we have automatic shutoffs. So if these countries, these corporations, do not pay us, we're just going to shut down their equipment. And we know China has purchased quite a bit of this equipment. And we know Latin America has purchased a lot of this equipment. And they're making payments on it. And we could see how bad this is because a Caterpillar 992C wheel loader used to sell for $2.9 million. Now it's $15,000. A Caterpillar D11N crawler tractor was $2.7 million. Now $46,000. I mean, it's unbelievable what is going on here. But everyone is kept in the dark, and they're continually believing that this economy is okay. I mean, it is spreading to other people. When I speak to many people around my area, they're completely in the dark. They think everything is absolutely perfect, and there's going to be a rude wake-up call when this whole thing comes tumbling down. We had a rude wake-up call back in 2008. People were not prepared for this whatsoever. They had no idea what was happening. One day they had a job. Next day they went in and said, see you later. Now, if the U.S. economy is in such great shape, why do all the numbers keep telling us that we're in a recession? The manufacturing numbers say we're in a recession. The trade numbers say we're in a recession. Retail numbers say we're in a recession. But just like in 2008, the Federal Reserve, our top politicians, are going to continually deny this until the very end. And then they'll say it came out of the blue. We don't know how this happened. And they'll blame many other things, except for the bankers, except for the policies, except for the central bank, which is the cause of all of this. We see a lot of the hedge funds basically winding down their huge funds. BlackRock is winding down Global Asset Fund. This is a global macro hedge fund that once contained $4.6 billion in assets. The winding down of the Asset Fund is the second high-profile hedge fund closing in 24 hours. The Wall Street Journal reported Tuesday that Achievement Asset Management, a Chicago-based hedge fund, was closing. Another troubling sign is the implosion of so many energy companies. In 2008, we saw a major crash in the price of oil. It hit the energy sector, and everything started to fall apart. Well, guess what? The same thing is happening right now. The holiday season, as we know, is the best time of the year for retailers, but this year it is not going to be good for them whatsoever. Once we hit that Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and we get the information that sales were absolutely terrible, you're going to see many, many stores closing before the end of the year. We saw this happen in 2014. Those stores that stay open and they don't pull in the sales, we are going to see mass closures in 2016. We already have calls from Nordstrom, Macy's, Banana Republic, and many other retailers already telling us that sales are not going to be good. I mean, Nordstrom is out there, and at their investor conference, they said they began seeing an unexplainable slowdown in sales in August in transactions across all formats. We just can't put our finger on it. Well, let me help you here. The economy is an illusion. These job numbers are fake. The GDP numbers are fake. Inflation numbers are fake. You put all the fake together, you get the economy is collapsing. The people don't have jobs. People don't have jobs. They're not spending the money. They're not going to your store to purchase. And this is what we are seeing right now. And if people aren't purchasing, manufacturers don't have to produce. If manufacturers don't have to produce, they don't need the raw material. And let me tell you, the Baltic Dry Index, it is in free fall right now. It has fallen for 20 straight days. And remember, this is the raw material that factories use to produce goods. The Baltic Dry Index has collapsed to all-time record lows back to 1984. It's at 504. This is the lowest cost for dry freight ever. I mean, this market right now is getting scarier and scarier as we go along. It's a complete disaster. Now, we know the United States and many other countries put out unemployment numbers, and they continually tell us that these unemployment numbers, these are the true numbers that we have. You know, the United States is at 5%. Europe has been holding at 12% across the board for all the countries. Every country is different. Some are up in the 30s, some are down at 8%, but the average is about 12. So Gallup did a survey, and again, they're separate and apart. They're going to the actual folks who are out there. And there is a International Labor Organization. Now, their number, and you know this is governments controlling this, central bankers controlling this, their global unemployment is around 5.9%. A new Gallup survey did their own global unemployment rate, and it's 32%. Well, we have a huge discrepancy here. It's almost like here in the United States. The government, central bankers are telling us it's 5%. And when we do the calculation, it's closer to 30%. And we're seeing the same thing with Gallup. So, who are all these people that don't have work? Well, Gallup put this together. And there are about 3.7 billion people basically not working. And Gallup explains what they mean by not working. About 1 billion people are self-employed. About 400 million work part-time and they don't want to work full-time. 300 million work part-time and they would love to work and get that full-time job. They just can't find it. 250 million are unemployed and they would like to work. And the rest are out of the workforce. This is how this breaks down. And what they're saying here is out of the self-employed people, they're saying half of these self-employed people aren't really working right now. So they cut that number in half. And they're saying there's only 200 million that are actually working as a self-employed person. So the global unemployment is a complete and utter disaster. This economy is completely imploding on itself. And we know there's a huge amount of debt out there. The central banks are continually creating more and more money, which is adding to the debt load. And there's no way out of this. Peter Schiff is saying that China is preparing for something big right now. He's saying it could be a gold-backed yuan. I wouldn't be surprised because that's what China's been doing. It's been purchasing a huge amount of gold, pushing the yuan to become a reserve currency, setting up bilateral trade agreements all around the world. And when they set one up, that basically removes the dollar. They're setting up trading hubs. And Russia and Germany just basically set up their yuan trading centers. And Russia right now is taking all of this to the next level because they're looking at Iran and they're going to set up an open joint bank. Tehran has agreed to Moscow's proposal to set up a joint bank to finance economic projects. This could happen soon. It depends on the technical details. And basically, Russia is going to provide the initial capital for the banks, and basically, they're going to bypass the dollar completely. And remember what I said about Iran. We understand there's a P5+1 deal going on right now, this nuclear deal, and this is the cover story that they're using. what's really going on is the part they don't want to tell you about. And that is the U.S. government, the central bankers, working with Iran to make sure they're going to set up a central bank and they're going to put their oil on the market using the dollar. And we see Russia stepping in, setting up a joint bank with Tehran. And we know as time goes on, Iran is going to say, why are we using the dollar? It makes no sense. And eventually what's going to happen, they will not use it. And this is when the United States government central bankers will go into Iran, if we get that far. Now, we understand the Federal Reserve is not part of the government. It's a private corporation. They push a button, they create money out of thin air, or I should say currency. And this really is something that the United States government doesn't even need. The people don't need the central bank to do that. The government can do this, and guess what? They don't have to loan it to themselves with interest. So moments ago, with a vote of 241 to 185, the House passed H.R. 3189, also known as the Federal Oversight Reform and Modernization Act. The bill would make changes to how the Fed conducts monetary policy and regulatory activities and would direct the Fed to take a rules-based approach to interest rate decisions. It would require audits of more Fed functions such as monetary policy and place restrictions on its emergency lending powers. In other words, everything the banks that are direct and indirect stakeholders in the Fed would fight to the death to prevent. And guess what? Obama is going to veto it. Now you know who has control of the country. Now you know who Obama answers to. The central banking system. And this flows all the way up to the Rothschilds. And what's very interesting, and something we all need to think about, a private bank cartel created by Congress doesn't want Congress to authorize this new bill to audit them. What we need to do is we need to get rid of the central bank. That's what we need to do at this point. There is no reason for it whatsoever. It does not add a benefit to this country. If someone can come up with a benefit, let me know. Because so far, there is absolutely nothing that they give that the government can't do without them. And everyone says, well, they create the money, they manage the affairs of the United States. No, it's a private corporation. Their mandate is completely different than what the government's mandate is. Their government mandate is supposed to be to the people. A private corporation is to themselves. It's to profit. Why in the world, if the government can create their own currency and use it without interest, why would they go to a central bank, take this made-up currency, and allow this bank to loan it to them with interest attached to it? And then the government go ahead and print up a bond to give it to them. It makes no sense. Because if they can print a bond, guess what? They can print currency, or they can hit a keystroke and create a digital currency with no problem. And the Constitution allows the government to do this, because our founding fathers knew this is a problem. The central bank is the main problem. Now, we understand the U.S. government is continually trying to bring in revenue, because as this system collapses, they need more and more revenue because of the debt problem. And of course, they tried all different things, which we discussed many, many times before. But let me just go off on Obamacare for a second, because we see something very interesting. We know the health insurance companies created this bill. Now, they thought they were going to profit tremendously from this. They were going to get all the American people on board with this. They were going to be able to raise the premiums like they have. And by using these penalties, everyone would have to get health insurance. Well, it's not working out that way. We're seeing about almost 50% of the co-ops going out of business. And now, the largest health insurer, guess what? U.S. health insurer wants to pull out. And that's kind of strange. They're the ones who wrote the bill. Now, why would they want to pull out? Well, basically, they're saying that the 2015 earning forecast is absolutely awful. And it's not worth being included with Obamacare right now. And they're going to scale back marketing efforts for plans for its plans selling this year, and quit the business entirely in 2017 because it's not worth their while. This Obamacare was never, ever a benefit to the people. How could it be? Think about it. When Obama told us about the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, he told us that, the premiums are going to be $2,500 per family. Very inexpensive. Well, they've doubled. They're $4,865 per family. And the deductibles are very high. These health insurance policies are worthless. You could have gotten this before. Actually, the premiums probably would have been lower because it was competition. But this is not a benefit to the people. You could have gotten this before. This is not helping anybody. And everything the government has tried up to this point has not worked. We are heading into a death spiral. And the system is ripping apart and collapsing. And this is why everyone needs to be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.